Wars cost money, but this one is costing the Gulf almost everything, it seems. Their oil revenues have frozen, their tourist bookings have been cancelled by tens of thousands of people, and air defense bills are running into billions of dollars. The war is bleeding Gulf economies. And Goldman Sachs has put a number to it, 14%. That's how much the economies of Qatar and Kuwait could shrink this year. 14% is a significant figure. Other Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Iraq have also been hit. The last time they suffered damage on this scale was back in the 1990s when Iraq invaded Kuwait. It was in the early 90s. When that war broke out, global oil markets went into free fall, and now we are seeing a repeat of that. If this conflict continues through April, if oil supplies remain disrupted for 2 months, Qatar and Kuwait will lose 14% of their GDP. What about Saudi Arabia? They stand to lose around 3%. The UAE could shrink by around 5%. That is the estimate of Goldman Sachs. Saudi Arabia and the UAE will suffer less because they have the infrastructure to reroute some of their oil exports. But they cannot rewire the entire supply chain, so their oil revenues will also take a beating. Now remember, oil is the biggest source of cash for Gulf countries. So far, they've lost more than $15 billion due to the war, because they're not being able to sell their oil, $15 billion. Saudi Arabia alone has lost some $4.5 billion. Same with Kuwait and Qatar. They have declared force majeure on their energy contracts. Now, force majeure is a legal clause. It allows these countries to suspend oil contracts. When circumstances are beyond their control, when they cannot make oil deliveries, they can suspend contracts. It's like a legal lifeline. Kuwait and Qatar are trying to protect themselves to avoid paying penalties because of the war. But this is short-term protection. If the oil business remains shut, the losses will keep mounting. And countries like Iraq are the most exposed to this, because 90% of Iraq's revenues come from oil, 90% of the revenues. If oil stops moving, the Iraqi state can virtually come to a standstill. Basra is one of Iraq's main oil hubs, and reports emerging from there are quite stark. Their storage facilities have hit maximum capacity. They cannot store any more oil, and production has been reduced drastically. Earlier, Basra was churning out 3.3 million barrels per day. Now the production has come down to 1.3 million barrels of oil. That's a cut of 60%. So the loss of oil revenue is the biggest shock. But it's not the only economic fallout for Gulf countries. The second major blow is the cost of defense. Iran has been striking them with drones and missiles. To defend themselves, these Gulf countries have deployed missile defense systems. And these systems are not cheap. Most Gulf nations are using the Patriot system. It is one of the most advanced air defense systems in the world. It uses missiles to shoot down drones. But this is a very expensive system to fire. One interceptor missile costs anywhere between $3 to $5 million. One interceptor missile, $3 to $5 million. One Iranian drone costs less than $50,000. So Gulf countries are spending $4 million per missile to bring down a $50,000 drone. And the bills keep piling up. Take the UAE, for example. The UAE has spent anywhere between $1.3 to $2.6 billion on air defense alone. Up to $2.6 billion. This is 13 times more than what Iran is spending on launching attacks. In Kuwait, they've spent between $800 million to $1.5 billion on air defense. Qatar has spent $600 to $900 million. And these costs will only rise because Iran is showing no signs of easing the attacks. So that is the second fallout, the rising cost of defense. The third fallout is from tourism. The Gulf has spent decades building itself into a global travel destination. These cities were designed to attract the world. But now that revenue is under severe strain. West Asia's tourism industry is losing big money, about $600 million a day. And the losses stem from a range of sources: the closure of airspace, flight cancellations, the drop in tourist arrivals. All of it adds up. You could say the war is following a predictable path. It begins on the battlefield and creeps into the balance sheet. And this damage will take much longer to recover from.